Macklin's house, but I'm doing that 10 mile an hour because I know. You see, this is looking back. Mr. Macklin's house is on the right, Mr. Roman's house is on the left in this photo. Taking this photo of that black vehicle there, it actually ran that stop sign. There's a stop sign on that intersection. Too bad I couldn't get the plate number. I wrote him a ticket later on. But so that's a straight shot over to 5th. As you can see, Mr. Roman has some bushes up here. I was talking with him the other night, and he can probably attest. He'll tell you later on that when that was pretty much open all the time, he had problems with vehicles trying to pass each other there and coming up into his yard and driving into his yard because they had to pass each other. Mr. Macklin takes great care of his landscaping work there and stuff, and doesn't want anybody driving through his yard or on his yard or anything like that. Like I said, there's Jackson Street. It's a one-way going to the east. There's Marshall, Ortiz and Marshall going back to the west. Just a bunch of one-way streets down there, and I'm just afraid that we open that alleyway up, that's going to make that more accessible for people to run back and forth on that from the east to the west instead of going around the block that they need to. Okay, this is my family. Okay, these are the ones I'm up here concerned about. All right, they're pretty happy now because the alley's closed. Okay, and we can play out in the yard. But we get to the point where we got to open that back up. They might be looking at a different tune here. So, throw a little humor in there. But in all honesty, I'm worried about the safety of that alleyway. The proximity of the houses in there and the blind areas and part of the traffic coming out. You know, you hired me on to protect and serve the community here to look out for everybody's safety and well-being. Well, here it's close to home for me for safety and well-being myself, including my neighbors in this area.
Okay.
I have a similar situation where I live. Jackson, down to the old police station. Of course, that's one way. So anyone living between Jackson, from Tyler Hill's house down to John Hyman's house, where the alley is that you guys used to cut through at the police station there. Anytime, if I want to go to Belmont High School, I turn down that alley that you guys used to use.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, anyone lives in that half block, and I've talked to John and Cindy about it, you know, and they have, you know, they're backing right out of their garage into that alley just like you. We try to watch our speed and be cautious of them backing out, but yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying there.
What brought
And I don't want to close that alley either.
Right.
to our attention was the utilities were saying that they would like to have. They didn't say they need to have, but they'd like to have. We all like to have different things. But
I think all these alleys that we're talking about, there's different circumstances for each one.
And we checked into it, and we couldn't find any records of why they were closed, who authorized them to be closed. There's nothing on our books. So we have to do something. Either if we go leave them closed, then we have to make a matter of record so it can get it in the books, or if you open them up, again, another matter of record. So that's kind of what brought it all on.
Well, and here, I guess a couple things. Who, Larry or Mr. Roman might know this, but do you know who actually closed off the alley? Did the city do that, or was that done privately, or?
It looks like the city might have done that because it's put in there with
Jerry, do you know?
Dwight Pierce closed that off when Dwight worked there. Dwight went and talked to Bill Patch, or, excuse me, I'll back up. Dwight lived in Jamie's house probably the late 90s,
Okay.
and Dwight went and talked to Bill Patch, and they talked to Fred, and he was the very first one to close off the alley, any alleys.
So that was the first alley closed.
Then it kind of...
Other people saw they could close that alley. Hey, let's close my alley.
But he did
they
that-
called that one closed, so the next one...
Okay.
Talked to Bill, and the
But
next one comes
that was
talk
done
to
by
Bill.
Dwight personally, not as on behalf of the city.
No,
Is
Dwight-
that correct?
Dwight went and got the material, he closed it.
Okay.
Now, how the other ones transpired is the same material, so they almost had to come and talk with Bill Patch at the time.
Okay.
Bill Patch
I'm not certain
is our
if
former
Bill
street
had
superintendent.
City guys go close them, if he just supplied the material, we don't know that for certain.
Well, I don't know if there's anything in the uniform traffic manual about closures, permanent closures. That's my concern. And if they're not properly closed, then we're exposed to liability. I'm not saying that they shouldn't remain closed, I'm just saying that if they should be closed, then it should be done properly and it should be documented so that in the future, there's no question about why it was and who did it. The other question that I have is, if I understand correctly, a lot of the one-way streets that we have today were established in part to provide traffic flow to the GE plant. Is that the case here?
Mr. Macklin.
To and from, I believe,
Yeah.
Larry's the oldest guy in the city, so he may remember. Sorry, Larry.
What was that comment, Danny? Question, was that for the GE plant necessarily? I don't know, back in the 70s, council did that. The GE compounded the problem by making Nutman Avenue, that alley became an extension of Fifth Street of Nutman Avenue. And then when when it became an island, those 2 blocks of the 4 one-way streets, that's what sets it apart from the others, is people use it constantly.
Mhm.
So we had a little relief when GE closed on that, and now people tend to pick it up again because they won't drive around that half a block, come through there. So Joe and I have recognized that problem an awful lot. So we would rise to ask that you not consider closing it. It extends the full 2 blocks and that, so to speak, 4 one-way streets. Simply going east from Fifth Street has been more than years than I can even begin to remember, an extension of Nutman Avenue, and then compounded again by the one-way streets. It's used today on a daily basis by dozens of vehicles, and somebody mentioned they don't stop at the stop signs, nor do they stop at the street. They cut across the lawns, sidewalks, and make the big turn and head up 4th Street, whichever direction they're trying to go in. So even today, one has a difficult time being safe because of the larger trucks that come through the alley. And when the part of the alley in question was first abandoned by the city, it was my understanding, I think, Mr. Baker, you probably want to check into it, but I think there was a transaction.
Yeah.
I think the neighbor who paid taxes, assumed ownership and paid taxes on that.
I went through the whole, Larry, I went through the whole ordinance book, and it's not in ordinance, okay?
Yeah, I don't know that. That was my understanding at the
Well,
time. So there must have been something.
Well, there might have been some type of transaction, but it was
Yeah.
more verbally than documented.
Yeah, if
I
they,
certainly wouldn't want you to take my word that
Yeah.
this was one.
I mean, there should be documentation of a vacation of an alley. That would have had to have been done by an ordinance of the council. So
There you are.
if we don't have anything in our records that show, and maybe we could go back and at least take a look at the minutes to see at or about that time whether there was any action taken. But you can close off an alley and not abandon it or vacate it. It's just a question. Yeah, so it may have been that there was some decision to close it off, but not necessarily to vacate it.
So I think, I guess I would ask you to reject the proposal at least temporarily until we have a better understanding.
You want to continue to leave it closed? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Right.
Joe does too?
Oh, yeah.
What?
I know I spoke with Dwight probably 2 months ago when this first was getting brought up, and I asked him if it was ever vacated. He said, no, he said, I just put
Well, there you go.
the barricades up,
Okay.
the posts up, and blocked it off.
Would there be any
And
benefit?
it still shows in the county GIS that it's still ours.
Still ours. Would there be any benefit in taking a look at whether we need to keep the streets that are one way, or whether we should open those back up? Are there advantages and disadvantages either way on that?
Everything's always open for discussion.
You're going to have,
I would
some people want to do it,
recommend
some that won't.
Consider that you hire a traffic engineer.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have
To
to.
look at the close and
Exactly.
somebody that actually
Yeah.
specifically works with traffic.
I guess my concern is this is one situation. Ever since I've been on council, there's a lady that lives, Nancy Brown, lives on Fifth Street on a busy alley between 5th and 7th Street, and she wants it closed. And how can we tell her no?
Phyllis, you have
That she wants it closed because it's busy, when others are closed and not open.
And a lot of
That's
what dictates if you close them permanently or temporarily or restrict them is the amount of utilities.
Where's the other one at?
Because
This is
if
one
you,
here. They came the street.
if they're closed, people start not necessarily building things on them, but then they become.
They came in the platted alley at Mark's Heating.
It's very difficult for utilities.
That's all right.
Every time you guys discuss vacating an alley or vacating a street, as soon as it hits a newspaper, I guess.
Yeah, I remember that, Chief Joe.
As soon as it hits paper, as soon as it hits the news.
Well, I want to point out, like Jeremy said, he pointed out that the utilities were off of his property on the south property. That's not the problem that AEP encounters. Is where they encounter a problem is when they want to get to that utility, that cars or vehicles or something is parked in that driveway. That they can't get their trucks in to work on those lines because once an alley is closed, it becomes a parking lot for people around. So that's their problem. It's not the problem they can't. It's visually there and it's only 20 foot off of the street or whatever. It's they just can't get to it because people use them for parking lots. So.
That's true.
Yeah.
People get used to it and they use it for a parking lot.
Well, we've had a circumstance down on, right south of John Street. There's an alley vacated there.
And in Jamie's situation, he does a good job controlling it. There's other areas that receive letters that people aren't here tonight, that's a total different story.
Okay. Yeah, I just think we should do something, make it a matter of record that it's closed, or it's open, either way, we have to get something in the books that we've given permission to close that alley.
I'd like to see us open them all up and then repave them, put that in our budget, and clean them out, because some of them are overgrown where they've vacated them, and then have the people come up and request to have it vacated. Just do it the proper way. Is that fair, Tim? And then when you vacate them, not rails going across, put some landscaping in there. Just make them like a permanent closure once you vacate it.
Now, you have to understand, some of those you're not going to be able to vacate because of the sewers and stuff.
Well, I think you should open them all up,
Yeah.
and then go from.
You were making a comment about vacating them and after the fact.
Well,
I don't know, there's a difference between vacating and closing.
yeah, and even if you did vacate it, if there are existing utilities there, those do not get vacated. So whoever holds the utility easement there still has the right to enter the premises and maintain whatever utilities are there. The vacation simply goes to the issue of using it as a public way for vehicular traffic. That you can vacate. And if a petition is carried by a property owner to vacate an alley, then what happens is that alley, you go to the center line of the alley, and if it is vacated, then the property, half of the alley goes to this property owner and half of it goes to the other side of the alley and that property owner. And then they start paying taxes on that. If you close the alley, you're not vacating it. The city still retains ownership of the alley and has the right to open it at a later time if it wished, but it does have the ability to close it off. It just needs to be done properly, and it needs to be documented that that decision was made by the city. And I'm not saying that somebody somewhere along the line in the past didn't okay it, but we don't have any records of it, and we need to follow up and get that in place?
So if there's right-of-ways because of utilities, it should not be vacated, but it could be closed.
It could be closed, and, you know, the issue is, even if you close it, the utilities are probably still going to be concerned about accessibility, about getting to what they need to maintain. So I think what you may want to do is, if you're going to allow alleys to be closed or kept closed, and you document it, that that's the case, then I think what you do is you take a look at each individual alley and you make a determination first, is it going to create an issue for maintaining existing utilities by closing it or keeping it closed? If it doesn't, then interfere and there's ways to maintain what's there, then you may consider closing it.
So to Bill's point, you opening them all and then making them request to close it
Right,
based on their...
Individually.
in the proper way, and
I think that goes back to Matt's earlier concern was, well, you know, if you're grandfathering some of these, then how can you deny others?
Future.
And I would, Haggard and Sutton Hershey Funeral Home, they've got a real issue. Because that's literally right down their steps.
Sure.
The alley.
When I lived on Adams Street, the only way to get to the garage was an alley. There's no way to get back there. Either come from this way or this way to get there.
Okay, Tim, so what's your suggestion to proceed here?
I guess, is it a Board of Works?
It's a Board of Works call in terms of the closure of alleys. The vacation of it's a council decision. So, and the vacation of an alley would necessitate somebody filing a petition to vacate, and then... Pardon? And that's done by an
Okay,
ordinance.
so if you say, okay, we're gonna open all the alleys, now before we actually take the barricades down, somebody could come up with a request to keep it closed, and here's the reasons why. Is that, I'm basically right? I mean,
Yeah.
So do I need a form like my parent requested to be...
I think you just did.
But Jamie and Mr. Macklin and Mr. Roman, the only thing that's unique about yours, I think, is the fact that you're on that island of the one-way streets.
Right. Yeah.
The
There's 4 blocks there.
problem that it's close to your property, that it's a T-intersection, those are all over town.
Right.
So that you're not unique with that, it's just the island part is...
Yeah, and the parking, I mean, that's, it's not up to the city to provide parking.
Consider
Yeah.
that aisle and
Yeah.
that situation creates the extra traffic.
I'd like to see a traffic study done
On Jackson.
on all those streets. Do they need to be one-way streets?
That might be the time to address them. It's been closed for how many years? 15, 20 years, whatever.
More than that.
So, I mean, if it's closed for another 6 months, it's not gonna be the end of the world.
Our situation is going to be a little difficult because it's not closed in the middle, it's kind of closed and not forced all the way down.
Mhm.
So it's very deceiving. There's rental property that sits on the very end of it. Majority of the time, the rental property is occupied. Right now, it's not occupied. So, and when that rental property is occupied, they park right in the alley, so.
And I think it,
And now, being that it's not there, we're getting a lot of people turning and going up that way, getting 3/4 of the way down there, the barricades are crossed, and it's like,
oh, where do I go now?
where do I go now? So it's really, it's, in that situation, and every one of these are a little bit different, but in that situation, it's really a safety hazard.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one way you could do it, if you open it, everything up, you can certainly do that, and then request that, you know, if somebody doesn't want it open, then they can request that it be closed, or vacated, either one. And then you would make a decision. The closing would be done by BZA, vacation would be handled by the Common Council. The other thing you could do is you could just schedule on your agenda the opening of this particular alley is going to be discussed and acted upon by the Board of Works, and if nobody comes and objects, well, they had their opportunity to do what Jamie just did and make a presentation to show why it made.
Take each one of these as an
Do it
individual
individually.
basis.
Because I think each one's gonna have different facts.
Yeah, I think so.
Exactly.
Each one's unique.
And
Yeah.
and that's when I did the letter that I sent out last week, was everyone affected by this received letters. We have one area
Right.
Showed
Yeah,
up.
that...
Exactly.
And the date and the time and the location, everything is included in the letter. So everyone was notified of this meeting tonight.
Okay, so maybe the best thing to do is make a mention of this at a city council meeting so we get some press out of it, and then say basically what we're gonna, it won't happen tonight. We'll do it at the next meeting, and gives everybody an opportunity to then come and say, hey, we want to keep it closed for this reason. Yeah, you're gonna have to come back. Or make Joe talk the next time. Okay? Okay. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate your interest in it. That's what we want. We wanted input, and you gave it to us. Thank you. Okay, next thing on the agenda is a chloride issue we have with Indiana Department of Environmental Management. If I'm messing this up, please don't be afraid to correct me, because I'm just going from memory that IDEM basically says we got too many chlorides going to the plant.
Can we order?
Basically, treatment plant.
Do it.
River,
Jackson and-
that's it.
And,
So,
Marshall.
the city hired Midwestern engineering firm to look at this on behalf of the city, and they're here to give us what they found out.
Good evening, my name is Andy Mix with Midwestern Engineers. I got Mark Sullivan here with me as well. We have taken a really long, hard look at this, and before I go any further, I gotta thank Nate and Ann and Bill Carpenter and Dan for their input. They gave us data, they gave us some input, some feedback, whatever. All right, so what NDOT said when you got your,
Not NDOT, it's,
I'm sorry,
IDEM.
IDEM,
you do a lot of transportation work evidently.
when IDEM reissued the permit in March, they basically said that they intend to put some limits on chlorides that come out of the plant. Okay? Chlorides don't really get well treated through the conventional treatment process, so they're kind of a pass-through. We did a lot of number crunching and looking at data, and determined that approximately 75% of the chlorides that come out of the wastewater plant originate at the water treatment plant. And it's a byproduct of the...
So we have two city agencies that are
right, exactly.
conflicting each other, I guess.
Well, yeah. So, the chlorides originate at the water treatment plant. It's a byproduct of the regeneration from the ion exchange process. If you look at this drawing right here, if you look at the blue is the water treatment plant. It's pretty much steady, right? If you look at the green and the red, one is the chloride concentration, and one is the flow from the plant. And what you can see is that when the one goes up, the other one goes down. So it's a question of concentration. So we looked at what to do about this,
and looked at, I think, probably five options, right?
Good old cell phone.
Turn that off. Sorry about that. So you've got chlorides that need to be, need to do something about those, right? So we looked at the alternatives. Do nothing, which is always an option in the IDEM world. Well, that's not going to work because they're just going to get back on your butt. We talked about eliminating softening so that the chlorides are not being released into the system. There's studies that have shown that eliminating softening on a public level really doesn't eliminate chlorides because people will just put in a softener.
I'm going to put a softener in my house, and I'm going to soften it, so if you get...
Right.
Yeah.
And they say it's between 50 and 100% greater in terms of the residuals. There is a process that has been used industrially, effectively, called reverse osmosis, but given the volumes of water that we're talking about, it becomes really expensive really fast, somewhere in the $4 to $25 million range. In some places, they have put together an evaporation system where you take this wastewater and you spread it out and you just let it evaporate, but we live in Indiana. There's 39 inches of water a year and 35 inches of evaporation a year, and it's just the acreage and it doesn't work. So what we kind of talked about was flow equalization, which is to take the flow that we have and feed it back to the wastewater plant on a control basis, where we have control of it. That is our recommended solution. We've got a concept design. Which looks like that. Basically, we would control the flow with a PLC from wastewater plant, and so that we send the flow to the plant on a controlled basis.
What's PLC stand for?
Programmable logic controller.
Why did I ask?
Computer.
Yeah, all right.
That's all it is. We took the flows from all of 2014 and ran them as if there was a flow equalization basin in place, and we came up with about 20,000 gallons. Being engineers, we added a safety factor and things like that. What we what we believe right now is that we should be at 15,000 gallons at each water treatment plant with a controller that slowly lets that water go back into the sewer system. So there's not a big slug.
Right now, we're having that big slug. We're releasing all of that, it's a backflow or whatever you want to call that, right into the system immediately, right?
Right, whenever it
So
comes
what
out,
you're
it
saying is you're going to
comes
store
out.
it and then release it gradually?
Exactly.
Isn't it called a flush process? In other words, when they flush their system out, it goes right into our sewer system?
As it stands now?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what they do.
and we want to get away from that.
So what we want to do is control it. so
Right.
We can bleed it out over, say, 24 hours.
Sure.
48 hours.
I know when we
If
first,
that happens on like a Sunday night when we have
Yeah.
real low flow plants, then that pushes the...
spikes,
Yeah, it spikes over the limits that they want to impose. So we would regulate it with our flow. So if we have low flow, they would release less.
I know we've been talking about this ever since I've been on the Board of Works for 8 years, and we've wondered what we could do. And in previous times, we weren't getting a lot of cooperation. I think we're probably more, we'll get the cooperation now, so yeah.
Well, yeah, and the key is for the wastewater treatment plant to talk to the two water.
Water plants.
Exactly.
And that can be done remotely.
Well, and before we didn't have to do anything, but now IDEM's come along and tells us we have to now.
Right.
We just said, okay, fine. We just went along with it.
But-
Nobody made us do anything, so we didn't do anything.
I mean, it doesn't have to be people, it could be computers.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the amount of chloride that's being released in the river is the same, it's just,
Correct.
It's not removed at all.
It's not removed through the treatment process.
But it meets the IDEM requirements of so much per day or hour or whatever
We're not exceeding the limits that are being imposed on our treatment plant.
We have, the proposed limits have two components,
If
right?
we use
One
the
is a
system.
mass,
Yeah.
and one is a concentration. The mass limits, at least by our calculations, are not an issue.
Okay.
But on certain days, concentration becomes an issue. So the idea is to control the concentration.
So and this is probably a question for Dan, but how frequently does the water get treated at the water plants? In other words, I assume there's enough time in between to meter it out to the sewage treatment.
Regenerated every day. There's 3 at one plant, 4 at the other.
Okay.
If you look at Appendix C in this report, it actually shows the history and data, the basis of the sizing and storage tanks for this meter discharge. And you'll see the accumulation of the brine waste, and actually the meter, at this proposed meter rate, and that's where they came up with their sizing along with the factor safety. So that was the basis. And that looked back at flow data from the
2014.
the beginning of 2014 to present. So it looks at rainfall data as well as our water demand, peak water demand, and salt usage.
Well, I could look at that all day, and it's not going to make me any
Okay,
sense.
well, it's a lot of charts. I mean, the main body of this report is
Conceptually, what we're talking about is construct improvements at Winchester and the wastewater plant in 2016. Monitor those results. Construct improvements at Monroe in 2018. Then monitor and report. But most importantly, the action item is that a plan needs, to be sent to IDEM probably by the end of the year.
That's the target, is that we report to IDEM.
1 month?
So we know we need work, but we want to monitor it before we do the major projects over here and over here.
Well, no, one project will be done.
Yeah, one project at a
Before they
time.
monitor.
Yeah.
The Winchester Street project.
What have we done
one
first?
They want to do, design and construct next year.
Okay.
What the permit requires is that a plan be submitted in basically this year, and then you do some work in the next year, and you have it all done in 5 years.
Is this an agreed order? It's not an agreed order, but it's just
No,
It's,
Part of their permit. It was written into the
variance.
MPEDS permit?
In your newly issued MPDS permit, it was written in, and it was scheduled that says, Decatur, you have to tell us what you're going to do to come into compliance, and we're going to give you...
So it's not an agreed order, but it's dang close to that.
Could turn into one if we don't act.
Agreed order means we have to do it. They don't give us a choice, so.
Yeah.
no, they have you in your target, in their target.
Okay. So, we submit this plan, say, phase one, we're going to design and construct the infrastructure at Winchester Plant. And then in 2017, we're going to monitor what that's done. In 2018, we do the same thing at the Monroe Street plant. And then you monitor it again.
Other
Let me give you some
other
background.
communities are going through the same thing?
I'm sorry?
Other communities going through the same thing?
Other communities have gone through the same thing. Some of them have tried different approaches. Angola tried to, they did a big study to try and get the limits reduced.
But essentially, yes, the state has made a big push to address chloride on communities completely across the state. We've dealt with it in Plymouth, like Andy said, Angola's been fighting against it. Most of the communities your size is finding that they're having to deal with the chlorides or the salt and figure out ways to deal with it. And since it's not treatable in the wastewater treatment plant, you have to go attack it at the sources. And unfortunately, or I guess you could say fortunately, because you got control of your water plants, but the water plants are the major source of your chlorides. So we've got...
We have some other industries that probably contribute, but 75% of it's coming from our own plant.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that was the bottom line, was
Yeah.
75% coming from the water.
I think we want to keep it that way, because the minute you start reducing your salt usage and the minute you start reducing your softness of your water, that's when, like you pointed out, that's when people start buying their own softeners, and then we don't have control of it. So
right.
we need to get on top of it now and keep our water as soft as it is and keep control of it.
And people won't maintain their softeners like we do.
Right.
Right.
Right. Because they backflush them whenever.
There's a study by NVQ that shows it goes up by 15 to 100%.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw that
I read that
in the
somewhere.
paper, yeah. In your book, yeah. And that's what you don't.
So what are we doing here tonight? You're just really reporting what you found? We're not asking permission to do anything, or are we wanting to move forward?
To reply to I.
Yeah.
I think we need to write a letter to IDA.
That's what we're here tonight for.
Plan.
And tell
Then I
them,
think you can use page 13 as the plan. Is that right? Which is the planned implementation schedule.
If you're in agreement with the findings, or if there's no significant changes or concerns, if you're comfortable with giving us direction to develop the letter, then we'll go ahead and develop the letter to send to IDA, essentially stating the results of what we found and what our implementation schedule is.
Well, I don't think we have much choice. I mean, we hired you guys, knowing that you know what you're doing, so this is the report.
And we met, Bill and I met with these guys today.
Does this have-
And we're kind of
I don't think so. This just says, this isn't anything about cost. This is just about what they
We talked
found.
about, we have
I
a
think,
tank out
isn't it?
there, that maybe we can reduce some of the cost, because we have a huge basin out there. We can put the controls on that basin.
What's this?
So, the
Yeah,
ideas are still, they're still
Yeah,
working.
probably.
same ideas, it's just a different way to get to the end
They
result.
just need to get the letter to IDA, and
Winchester Street.
say this is what we're gonna do.
Okay.
is it possible that if you did the Winchester plant, and then you did your studies or evaluations, that you may not need to do the Monroe plant, or is that,
It's possible, because that is a possibility.
Yeah.
60 to 70% of our water comes from Winchester
Right,
Street plant.
right.
Since we are real close to the guidelines, it may pull it down enough that we may not have to do the other one.
right?
But at least we'll have 2017 to monitor all that and check.
Exactly.
On page 12, you identify the costs. Is that something that we can manage with our existing rates, or are we looking at possibly having to do something there?
We have enough things going on in the water department that we're gonna have to have a rate increase soon anyway. I mean, we all know
Well,
what's going on.
That was one of my questions, Dan. Who pays for this? Because really, we got two different utilities that are involved. One's the wastewater, and one's the water, so,
And that's what we have to discuss too. It may not have to be all burdened by the water department.
yeah, right.
So, to answer your question, we have the money in there now to do it, but the water department's kind of going where the sewer department was 4 or 5 years ago, because there's been no rate increase for years. So, we need to look at this with some pipe replacement. There's a bunch of things we all need to happen. Probably next year sometime, there's going to have to be a rate increase for water, and this will have to be part of it.
All right. Well, what we're after tonight is really giving whoever here permission to respond to items saying, hey, here's our plan. You know, write a letter and say, we're going to do this.
Well, I think we'll work together on it.
Yeah, okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that. Carried. Proceed. Get us out of the crosshairs. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Fire contracts, that's put off till the next meeting, is that right?
No, actually, it has to be the new meeting because we'll have all the members. Well, they have to do...
Yeah,
It should have been.
He should have been this
Oh,
year.
man.
You think? That make a difference?
Struggling. I know.
I mean, it maybe not.
Talking about fire contracts for the township?
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna have new council members, board of work members in 2016.
Correct.
Do they have to sign those contracts, or can we sign them in 2015 with the current members? Does that make sense?
Well, is there, I mean, are they pretty much standard contracts, or?
They increase every year, I mean, or change every year, I should say,
Based on assessed valuation?
of
and-
the budget of
Yeah.
15, but the agreement.
Not when the water's
You know,
going to cost.
I mean, I would let,
To keep our water soft. The water's not soft.
You know, it's
with
butter or hard
the, with
water, but
the
really it's pretty soft comparatively. Then why
Could
the
we
heck
solve
why
it?
water
Three
go bad so fast?
existing council
All the area
members
plumbers
are
tell me our
currently-
water's terrible.
Like my
So
father.
as long as,
I guess that's what,
Wrote it off.
Chris and I were asking, if we
No, what I'm
want to do it
saying-
this year, or do we wait until, we'll do it 2016?
Start out with, we got hard water coming
when
from
have we
Vern.
done it in the past? When have we
And
signed those
for us
contracts?
to
Haven't
stop
some of
it.
those been?
Well, I always
It
try to do
takes
it
some
to
months. I
them,
mean, look how
I
many,
did the first
you're
meeting
doing
in
over 3
December.
million pounds of
so
chloride every
that
year.
their board meets the first of January.
And it's
So
expensive.
they're reviewing their scoop bags, they've got an advisory board.
I think you just go ahead and do it as you
I think we're gonna have to
routinely
spend a
do.
bunch of money over here to...
And, I mean, especially if the
Riverside
current
Center.
members on council. who are
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
be-
Well, it's not council's board work.
Well, a lot of money spent on that.
Well,
And since you have the mayor, I mean, if it's fine, it doesn't matter.
Two of them are going to be...
But he'll be as mayor.
He'll
But I
be a
don't
board
know.
working meeting.
Yeah.
Right
So I
on.
guess it
Okay, here.
doesn't matter, I mean, how you
Lieutenant,
get into
You
it.
whispering back.
what,
Are you keeping? He doesn't know.
well, here's why I'm asking. I'm asking because the issue of fire contracts come up, and if
It's a board of works.
it's a board of works, so if
Whether it's this year or
whether
next
it's this
year,
year or
we already have
next,
two of this
that's
year.
what I'm saying. So you got a majority, as long as you guys are okay doing it this year, then do it.
The next meeting, but I put questions.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I
I'm
need
sorry.
to know, so I can get prepared.
Let's see, that's good.
So we'll bring it up at the next meeting.
Do it, yeah.
Okay. So I hope everybody understands this water thing. It gets, here a couple years ago, we cut back on our salt treatment because it was becoming more of an issue all the time. So we cut back, and the water is a little bit harder. I mean, you go to the shower and you see how much suds get down, you know. That's how I always looked at
Right.
it, and it was cut in half
Yeah.
by less softening.
Maybe we could
Bump it up again?
Now you can bump it up, yeah, if you're gonna just filter it in. to me, it's stupid because it's gone the same place, you know? It's just slower. Yeah, it's slower, yeah. So when they backwash, that's when they flush it all out, it all goes at one time. So they're gonna cut that down, they're gonna, instead of backwashing, they're gonna take it to a tank who filters it out slowly, instead of all at one time. And it meets their requirement.
Can't we just let it out slowly when they come test?
I like your thinking, Tyler, but that's not gonna work.
Just let it trickle on test day, and then the rest you just open it up.
Yeah.
So I call them up and ask them when they're coming, Tyler? Yeah. Can you give us that?
Call before you come.
Yeah.
Now, we wanna make sure someone's at the plant.
We wanna make sure we get lunch ordered.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really don't have anything else.
Oh, I do.
A little bit of X, okay.
Do we have time?
Yeah, we haven't got a half hour.
No, I told him it was city council. I'm sorry, that's what I told the people that, well, we got two, didn't we? Two?
Yeah, that's all I received.
You got one from Star and one from Graver?
I guess I don't need to present it, do I, Tim? Maybe, or I'll just let
Well,
somebody know.
Phyllis was wanting to make
On that letter,
a change to our
you just let the,
ordinances. I guess annually, we make changes to
You're requesting
update the
I do a
ordinances.
letter.
So if you have something that you want to get changed,
Another-
now's the time to do it. We talked with the department heads this morning. Any changes are getting them to Phyllis here in the next week or so.
Signage
So,
and a lot of corrections.
every year, there's going to be a change to the ordinance.
Easiest and best way to do that.
Maybe it'll be
Do you
just
have
a couple minor
soft
changes,
copy
it might
of
be a
everything?
major one.
Hey, on your computer?
Bill's got quite a few on stop signs.
I'll have to go back and look, because
Open up a big can of worms, but we're putting bike racks on bikes that you can't ride your bike.
don't we have like schedules?
We're putting bike racks on sidewalks where we have an ordinance that you can't ride a bike
So it
there.
would be a matter of going in and making the corrections on the schedules, and we'd have to do an amendment to our current code wherever
I
it
think our-
is.
I do too.
And then that would get
I think we
sent
need to
down to American
eliminate that.
Publishing, and then they would
No riding
incorporate
bikes on
that in
sidewalks.
an update.
But I'm saying.
I did that since I was a kid.
Thing,
that was a...
oh, to do it.
Put in when the sidewalks were packed with
Do you
people.
have a?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Long time
On your
ago.
computer? Do you have it on your computer?
I think so.
And it was an issue.
Can,
We did that, how long ago? We did
There was
that.
a lot more downtown testing traffic.
Should have something there, yeah, I'm
probably
trying to remember, Bill. I think.
Yeah, really,
Now
six
work
weeks
on
late.
open up some of their schedules.
Yeah, you were the first one to give me a speeding
Okay, I
ticket.
think she, so it may, if she's.
You notice I said first, I had more than one.
Typed those up and then emailed them to me.
No, went to Judge
So it may be
Hunter.
that we have to make the corrections on
Yeah,
what
I just did
Sharon
pitch
originally
fine.
did.
He owed my dad
You know what
money.
I'm saying?
yeah,
And then.
I just want to make it easier. In other words, if I give it to Aaron, give it
The question is, do we want to correct the no riding
or she could put it on the computer.
bicycles
I
on
probably should
sidewalks?
Maybe have Aaron.
Correct it by eliminating it?
By eliminating
Take it
it.
away.
Make it easier that way.
Well, if you don't have it.
We talked about it.
Bill brought it up
I thought
last
ours to put
time,
it on
because
hard
you put a
copy.
bike rack on the sidewalk, you can't ride
Can't ride a bike there.
Yeah.
Makes
Yeah,
no
and then
sense.
They're gonna move it to Charlie Broom's ice cream shop
I
on the
really
sidewalk.
think if you're gonna...
I would.
But there again, that sidewalk's not supposed to be having
Maybe get together
bicycles.
with Aaron and Sharon.
None of them want to ride down
Sharon-
So you wouldn't really want to ride down Second Street unless you're riding
Make the change
for
right there.
exercising
See,
your,
that's how I
you
saw
know,
it.
going
They
quicker.
missed it
I'm
on
riding
three
my kids
sheets.
up
Okay.
I'll be riding down Second.
On,
No.
When they did it.
right, they stopped at the letter S.
Sidewalks are wide.
and
It's
never
not a
went to-
problem.
Never went to W.
Evidently, Bill and Tim's got their own conversation.
Well,
Okay.
So, we were talking about eliminating the requirement. The book says there's no riding bicycles on sidewalks. But then we put a bike rack there and say, hey, we should,
certain,
you know,
certain sidewalks,
Yeah.
not in
I
that
was thinking
area.
it was downtown.
Yeah.
I think we want to,
It's right over here on Monroe, okay, like out in front of Two Brothers and that. So there's only certain
we're
streets.
going out, the suggestion is to eliminate that and just
Oh, really?
allow bicycle traffic.
Well, as long as you don't run over somebody coming out of Two Brothers on a Saturday.
Well, so why I'm asking, how do you...
And if you do,
Do you need a consensus
fault
here
is it?
to change that?
Well, that's something that's gonna have to be done by ordinance, so it really.
But I know, but he has
So
to
it's
make a
council that
supplement.
has to make
But
that.
that will be
yes,
included in one large ordinance for the changes for the whole year. So that will be included in that.
Right.
Bill's got a whole bunch of stop signs and some other traffic issues there. So this here would be included in that ordinance.
American
If we
Legal
allowed,
hasn't
if we allowed
prepared that yet.
bicycle riding on the
So
sidewalks downtown,
Mhm.
I mean, if
Somebody
the people-
gets hurt.
If the people ride and stay out toward just the street side, it's pretty safe, but if they
Right.
ride up towards a shop or whatever, somebody
you have
steps out in
people-
it, and you have an accident, who's liable?
Probably we get involved in it because it's our property
Our sidewalk.
and we allowed that to happen. So I think you could probably end up with,
Which is probably why they put the ordinance out to start with.
it is.
And it's only certain streets, too.
It's
I'm just saying, there's certain sidewalks.
It's more, some of the kids, not all the kids, but some of the kids,
That's with everything.
and so
Small
they're,
percentage makes it,
but, you have a kid that's riding really fast down the street and an elderly person walks out of a store and gets hit, you could have some serious injuries. And that's the risk
so
you
by
take.
us having an ordinance that says no riding on sidewalks, how does that save us?
It protects pedestrian traffic.
Yeah,
it
but some kid's
prevents-
not gonna know that we have an ordinance against that, and he's still gonna do it.
But
So
if he
this
does,
older person
then
gets knocked down.
we're not gonna be, we're not culpable at that point, John, because we prohibited it, and they violated it.
So who's gonna get sued?
If they sue us, we've got an easy out on that.
We got an ordinance against it.
If we allow bike riding on the sidewalk, then we're exposed.
Which streets are you not allowed to ride on right now, Bill?
Oh, geez.
Well,
I know you're not allowed to ride, maybe Greg could help me, Monroe and,
supposed to ride on the highway.
and Second Street.
Would want my kid riding on Monroe Street.
Well, that's the problem.
And Second Street.
A lot of the studies are really promoting bike riding,
They want you to put in
it's
a bike
great.
lane.
But you want a
But-
lane.
But a lot, if you
like
look,
them either.
well, if you look at a lot of the communities, they have wide enough streets
To do it.
to do it. Our
They don't.
streets, if we had 60-foot wide streets, you have enough room that you can do something like that, or if you restrict parking, but
Yeah.
you
Could
start
we even do it
restricting-
on Monroe Street since that's a federal highway?
On Monroe Street?
Yeah.
No, that's a
couldn't do
state.
it.
So
Yeah.
technically, you should never have a bike on Monroe Street, because you can't go in the street or the sidewalk.
Well, you can go in the street.
You tell some kids not to do that.
Right. If we ride our bikes to
Right.
town, we're gonna go to Charlie's for ice cream and to church on the sidewalks and then go down.
Yeah, no, I'm not,
We do it all the time.
what I would suggest you do is maybe talk to some of the other communities and see if they allow bike riding on sidewalks. I understand the danger of little ones riding on a street. I also understand the danger potentially to pedestrians that are walking out of a store and somebody's barreling down the sidewalk on a
Well-
bike.
if we keep it just like it is, and people continue to ride on the sidewalks, no harm.
It's an enforcement issue. If we don't
It's an
enforce
enforcement.
it.
As long as we don't enforce it, it's no harm. The only issue is that we have a bike rack on a sidewalk that you're not legally supposed to be able to ride on.
Where is it? Where's the bike rack? You talking about Court Street?
They're gonna move it.
it's on
to-
Madison
They're
Street.
moving it now, but
It's on Madison.
they're gonna move it to
Street.
the ice cream shop.
Yeah, I mean, you've got competing safety issues here. You got an issue of pedestrian safety if you allow bike riding on the sidewalk. You got a safety issue of causing bikes to ride only on streets, where
Oh,
it's
yeah, it's more
difficult to
dangerous
ride
than
on
anything.
streets and put them in the middle of vehicular traffic. I mean,
I think we keep
there's
it just like
risk
it
on
is.
both ends of that.
I mean, we're not going to enforce it. People still ride. I mean, who isn't riding on the sidewalk because we have an ordinance that says they can't?
Right.
I mean, people ride on the sidewalks, wouldn't need an ordinance. But the way it is now, we're at least protected,
Right.
correct?
It is, but, if you got something on the books, generally
Enforce it.
you enforce it.
Well,
But we haven't.
You know how big the book is. And there's not hardly anything in that book.
To me, it's an issue, if a teenager is just flying down the street or on a sidewalk, you know, maybe you cite that person. If you got a family, like, you know, where the parents are trying to be responsible and make sure that their kids are riding properly, you know, why would you cite somebody like that?
Greg,
Front and center.
you, just curious, when we went through the ordinance book on the plates, we left the no riding on sidewalks, we discussed that with the bicycles. Our question is, do you enforce it?
No, not, a lot of times on some of those ordinances, not that, I mean, you can argue when we're supposed to, but because of the frequency and that type of thing, we generally don't get after the ordinances until there's a complaint.
Very good.
Complaint?
It is, most of the smaller kind of that I consider ordinances or complaints.
American Legion.
I like it too.
Here's what our ordinance says. No person shall ride, lead, or push a bicycle upon the sidewalks along 2nd Street from Jackson to Jefferson, nor upon sidewalks along Monroe Street from 1st to 3rd Street in the city.
Thanks, Melissa, you got that. They ask me all the time, like I have it up here. You got it there, good.
And I believe, I haven't checked on this one, but I believe there's another one too on skateboards, same way. Because I think I don't know how many years back it was, but we discussed that.
Skateboarding's become popular again recently in the last few years. Yeah.
I think that was more an issue of damage being caused to some of the structures.
Yes.
Okay, so the reason we would not want to undo it is a liability issue?
Potentially. That would be the primary
Because
reason.
somebody fell and got hurt on our sidewalk. right
Somebody's
now.
riding a bike down and somebody walks out of the store and gets hit.
And if we don't have an ordinance, then we're liable. If it happens right now, and we're sued, we have an out.
The kid on the bike's at fault.
Now, I mean, we're fortunate in the fact that we have the 5 or 6 foot sidewalks. We're fortunate in that respect, but still, you know, kids don't care, you know, whether you're supposed to ride against
Right.
the building or
Right.
whether you're supposed to ride against the street.
Yeah.
So
That's why I say if it's a family, chances are they're gonna be riding slow, they're gonna be riding away from buildings, so that if somebody does come out, they're not gonna be right on top of them.
But then there's always the issue also that I was always worried about, and that's kind of why we pretty much enforce it, is because I hate to see bicycles on 2nd Street right in the street.
Exactly. That's,
Because of the parking and the...
And even more so on Monroe Street.
so, you guys decide. It doesn't matter to me, I'm just saying that it's your call.
Well, it's not like...
I'll let you explain that.
I guess...
The issue of protecting employee liability, or are we actually trying to help them protect people from being hit? Like, that ought to be our motivation.
Well, I understand, but that's what I'm saying.
But, so we're also trying to drive traffic downtown. We want to have...
Right.
We want all that stuff. I think we can do a good job based on what the ordinance is. It's restrictive, it's not that restrictive, but
Second in Monroe.
But there's nobody saying I'm not riding my bike downtown because
Tell them to ride 1st and 3rd Street.
what about develop, what we're talking about, First Street, moving it into
Right.
the side, I think you develop a path for them to navigate by.
That's what I'm
Or is
saying.
there a possibility to change the ordinance where you can only walk your bicycle on the sidewalk instead of riding it in the downtown area? I mean, it is, you know, it's, you can even narrow that up, say from Court Street to Monroe Street or something along those lines. So they can still have their bicycle downtown, they just have to walk it on.
99% of people on a bike don't know we have any restrictions.
I agree.
You're absolutely right.
I agree.
You're absolutely right.
I rode my bike down 2nd Street all the time. You have to put signs up.
Right.
Yeah, bike route. You're coming from Bungie, up on 2nd Street, and you get to Jackson, there's gotta be a sign that says bike route, that way.
Nobody.
Everybody will read it and pay attention.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's where you arrested me, by the way, it was right down there.
You know, when we did that, we looked at that house and...
Yeah.
I don't know if that's...
Okay, that's great for discussion, but I don't think we've settled anything, so.
We'll leave the ordinance the way it is.
After the meeting.
Okay, so I guess we're leaving it alone until somebody comes up with a change.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah.
I can write the ordinance however you wish.
And I can contact some other cities, see how they do it, you know, well, what they do if anything.
I know Fort Wayne has trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Because the bike paths they put in on the streets, the cars drive on them.
Oh, yeah.
And if the bike's in their way, they honk the horn and tell them to get off the bike path.
Yeah.
We're using it.
Yeah. Get Bill Warney's opinion on that.
That was all in the paper the other...
He's a bike rider. He
weeks
thinks
ago.
we should have separate lanes for bikes and everything.
Steve, good for him.
Yeah.
Good for Borney.
Now,
Sharuka
if you really want
rides all over.
if you really want to see something interesting,
You know.
go out to Colorado, where they're a bike community, and watch the people on bikes test the people on cars.
You're exactly right.
And the cars that come over and kind of get close to them, and, you know...
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, thank you. I will check with some other cities and keep Tim involved with what I find out. Phyllis did have one item to bring up,
Okay.
and it involves the surety bond ordinance that we passed on 2 readings at the last meeting. She wanted to maybe clarify a couple things on it.
I just want you guys to know on this ordinance, we prepared or passed on 2 readings last meeting. State Board of Accounts, I've been emailing back and forth, I got more information, and that, what we had in here, we don't normally have separate bonds for the utilities or the deputy clerk treasurer. It's always just been me. Well, now the state came back and said that it's up to council what they want to do. When Tim prepared it, we went ahead and put $30,000 on the deputy clerk, $30,000 for the utility director and the utility clerk. But that's, so I checked with State Board of Accounts, and his comment was, if the director and the clerks collect more than $5,000 per year, our position is they need coverage, either an individual bond covered by blanket bond or as as part of the crime insurance policy. The amount of coverage for these persons is set by a fiscal body. However, if these people routinely collect between $5,000 and $60,000 a day, please consider if $30,000 is sufficient coverage. So it's really up to you guys if you think that's enough, or...
And how much do we have now?
Right now, they are not in anything. They're not bonded
The only thing
at
we
all.
have is the crime.
But right now, for this ordinance, we did $30,000 apiece for them. So I don't know if you want a separate bond. Every other employee that handles city money is $5,000 blanket bond. That's what we're setting now.
It's, okay, as of January 1, you have to, everybody that handles money has to be bonded. If you're going to use a blanket surety bond, then you have to cover everybody. The minimum bonding amount is $5,000. So for the vast majority of city employees or officers, it would be $5,000 under the blanket bond. If, in the case of Phyllis, by statute, she, because of the amount of money that she handles, she has to be bonded at $300,000. Okay? That's the cap. It can be higher if you elect, but by statute, that's the maximum that she would be bonded. If she were to handle less than $1 million, then her bond could be as low as $30,000. Okay? But what she handles would require, under the statute, being bonded for at least $300,000. You could go higher. This ordinance says that she's going to be bonded at $300,000. Then you get to the issue of the clerks, both in Phyllis's office, Dan is a utility administrator, and his clerk. So there's 4 additional positions that we in the ordinance have identified are going to be bonded individually at $30,000. Is that right, Phyllis? The effect of doing it, the way the ordinance is worded currently, is that you're going to go from a cost of about $350, which is what is currently being paid for Phyllis's bond, to somewhere up around $1,400 to $1,500 to bond everybody. Okay, that's the cost. So the question is, one, are you comfortable with bonding the other positions at $30,000? Or do you want to just include them under the blanket bond at $5,000? Or do you want to require something higher because they actually handle more money than what a $30,000 bond might?
That's per month or
No, that's annually.
Yeah, that's the annual fee.
Yeah. It's an annual fee.
But like what they collect daily, it's from 5,000 to, they can collect up to 60,000 a day.
And the
that's
state
why
is now
I didn't know how
requiring
you
the
guys
bond.
felt.
So it's
You
not,
feel more secure
that's why
of
we're
having
doing it.
those bonds higher, or?
Well, clarify, why are we bonding them for 30,000? Say someone takes 30,000 or they
Yeah,
mess
that's
something
what
up,
it is.
basically, that's what it amounts to.
so they take 30,000 in a day.
Surety bond pays, and then the surety bond company goes after them to collect it back.
Or we go after them to collect it back?
Yeah, but it's not an option in the sense that we have to bond everybody that handles money. It's just a question of what dollar amount you bond them.
So I guess we bond them for 30,000 and then they take 60,000, then we're out 30,000 is what we're...
Well,
If we
surety
have them under the
companies-
blanket and they take 30 and they're only covered for 5, we still lose 25. So I mean, it's just,
Yeah, so it's a question of how much money you want to spend on bond premiums.
Bonds, yeah, because it's,
So we're trying to find a balance here. The question is, are you comfortable with what's being proposed, or do you want to modify it?
So what's
I
being
just wanted you
proposed?
guys to know about it before we.
Yeah, exactly.
actually
How does
pass
the
it on
ordinance
to
read
final
again?
reading. Huh?
how does the ordinance read?
The ordinance
Right
is-
now, mine's 300,000, which is, that I have to be
Mhm.
because of the amount of money.
Mhm.
The deputy clerk, the utility clerks, and the utility director are all at 30,000.
And the rate's
everybody
gonna go
else
up
would be
to
covered on
14
And
to
then any
1,500 a year.
other employee that handles the city money is at 5,000.
So those four, what's the difference in cost between having them each at 30 or keeping them blanket under 5?
There's
total of
it's $100 for each one of those four, so
$400.
you're probably talking, yeah, and it would slightly increase the cost of the blanket surety bond, so it's going to be probably close to 400 is what the difference.
It's good insurance.
It is, it's just probably good business.
Yeah. I mean, I just find the irony that we're forced to to spend taxpayers' dollars to protect their
Right,
dollars.
Taxpayers.
Taxpayers' dollars, right?
Against fraud.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we do have a crime, too, policy on that, too.
That's the other
So if
part.
you're happy with that, we can just keep it with that, too.
So like, so we're double insured, we have a crime policy plus this?
It's additional coverage, is really what it is.
Which one is additional, the bond?
The
I think
bond.
the bond is...
The bond's
The
additional.
bond's not for crime, it's just for messing something up.
It could be more than just
It's,
embezzlement.
yeah, there's different
Errors and
theft
omissions, probably, so.
and error and,
Well, I'd say from the error and omission standpoint, I get it, that makes sense. But it's just a matter of, if we're afraid they might steal from us. So, if it's only $400, it increases up to 30, and they're all doing, I mean, if they're doing transactions of over 5 on a daily basis, then I think that makes sense.
So the way we have the ordinance right now is okay.
if you're okay
We've
with
read
it.
it on 2 readings tonight,
Okay.
later we'll...
I just want to make sure before we pass it,
Yeah.
that you guys understood, because they say you guys are the,
How many of those people have draft authority? They can write checks, or are you the only one?
I'm the only one that can write checks, but Wendy has access to the online banking, which is millions of dollars. I mean, that's why I said I just, they
some of these other people we're talking about don't even...
don't have access to the bank account, no. Just our office.
there.
Correct.
Yeah, what they can
Theirs is
take
just
is
the
the
actual cash
daily
coming in.
cash transactions that
Right.
occur, which can be significant. So, it's really your call ultimately, but
I'm fine with the ordinance.
I know Phyllis talked to different people, talked to the State Board of Accounts and tried to come up with a figure that made some sense, while balancing the cost of what you're doing, so.
But just in case anybody ever views this tape, we understood that there's limited access to these funds.
Yes.
Okay?
You can watch it on YouTube right now.
All right? And that way they know that there's
Well, not right now, but
$80,000.
it will be on YouTube.
Right, no. It is secure in the bank.
Bill still has,
The only thing I've got is, if you remember back in 2013, we went around, Jeremy and myself and Roger,
Oh, you did?
and kind of pointed out there were 17 garages and sheds that we needed them to fix them up or whatever, and a lot of them put roofs on. We destroyed, or there's probably 5 or 6 that actually we took down and yeah. And out of the 17, I'm down to one.
One left.
One left that they have not responded, and they just, I've sent them 3 letters, a final notice and an urgent notice. And I think I'd like to have Tim send them a letter, and I'll give you this. It shows the garage and everything.
where's this at?
It's on H Street in the alley. So just kind of giving you an idea what maybe Tim can write him a letter and
And if they don't respond to Tim's letter, do we go tear it down?
that'll
Well,
probably take some.
You gotta go to court first and get an order to condemn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we got to get through to them. That it's more costly for them to go that route
Then
than
do it themselves.
just to have us tear it down.
Do they not have the resources to tear it down? or-
Buildings.
I don't know, I know Jeremy worked with other
Buildings, is that what he's doing?
property owners on something like that.
Yeah, we've taken a few down.
What year did you say we did that, Bill, 17?
I think it's 2000, set up with top.
2013, we had
Jeremy, how-
17, that
you
went
know,
on one,
When
directed
we,
Tim to write a letter to
when
that
we would
person.
get okays to take down buildings, wasn't there some agreement that was worked
Yeah,
out
we
with the property owner where
Had
they,
a form, yeah.
yeah, and they authorized it and then they agreed to pay, and if they needed, time to pay it or something, didn't we work that out with them, or,
Everyone paid up front.
okay.
And you have to keep in mind, it's very minimal, it's only like $200.
It's a small
A
amount.
couple $100.
Right.
So I think like 220 or 225 was the highest one that we had, but there was other debris there also that I said, hey, would you help me out here? He paid additional while we were there.
Yeah, we had one that gave us more money than it actually cost, so we had monies so we could go to the next one. And
We did all right.
No, they're in defense, that's some of them. They've never thought about tearing down a garage or getting rid of it. They don't know what's involved in doing it. I would, I'd call somebody, call Ty. You tear this thing down and take it away.
Okay, we can adjourn.
Okay.
Oh, you got something, Tim? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You have 4 minutes, so to make it quick.
Update on the AEP lease, we met with AEP, they agreed to allow us to make some modifications to the lease agreements, we did so. That went to their attorney who promptly changed what we had suggested. I let Mr. Yates know that what had been changed was not acceptable to the city. Basically, what it amounted to is, if we give a easement to AEP, they have basically final say on whether we can put a sidewalk or a trail down where they're asking for an easement, and we object to that. We said, that's our call, not yours. We'll work with you in placing it so that it doesn't interfere with your easement, but you shouldn't have final say over something that the city sees as
I agree
a
with you.
desirable thing.
They want something from us, so we just say...
So, at this point, we still haven't signed the leases or the easements, so hopefully that'll get ironed out. But I haven't heard back from the attorney. Then with regard to the First Street sewer project, looks like things are starting to fall into place with real estate acquisition easements. So as soon as I get some information on the real estate purchase agreements, then I'll start drafting those and get those signed. With regard to, Jeremy, are you going to say something about the wetlands nature preserve where you planning on?
We don't have a whole lot of information. I need to get it back from Bob Bronson.
Okay, but we did get an email concerning that, correct?
Yeah, Bob Bronson called. last
Mr.
week.
Bronson is with Department of Natural Resources.
And we made the cut. Procedure-wise, our name and our project had to go to the federal level. He said it's strictly procedural, but there's no funds setting there at this point.
Well, I thought there was funds in 2015 that were available.
Yeah, this is from what you told me and Larry Macklin told me. So I'm waiting on Bob to get back with me to see exactly where it is. Timing-wise, when Bob had talked with Chris, I was not in the office that day. Whenever he called, he told Chris Crawley, said, he was planning on getting your plans and stuff together. What we really need to do is we need to get back with Kyle on and start the process and get everything, make sure that we're getting everything in line properly. Make sure the properties are acquired properly and according to their guidelines.
Right. But it was good news,
Yeah.
what we got, so.
We just need to get in line for the funding.
All right. Okay, the one other thing is Ken as the mayor, new mayor, has some appointments to make for various boards or bodies, and the council makes one appointment, I think, from its membership to the BZ, or to the Plan Commission, is that correct? Yeah, I think Tyler's
currently...
So, the Plan Commission and the BZA are going to hold organizational meetings, the first meeting in January, or first meeting date in January, so it'd be January 5th. But the council doesn't meet until after that. So, if you're okay in making that appointment, since you've got 3 current members who are going to be new members of the new Common Council, if the 3 of you are all in agreement to reappoint Tyler to that position, then you could go ahead and do that.
Is it a 1 year, is it a 1 year, year by year thing, or is it?
No, I think it's 4 years.
Is his term up?
Yes,
It is up, okay.
he just filled Charlie.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so he was really lucky.
I knew that, but I didn't know if it was, because John sent me a list of all the
Well,
appointments.
they were 2 for a while, after so long, after those 2 years are ended, then it went to a 4-year term. There was like 3 people that changed like that.
Yeah, there's no actual business that's going to be conducted at either meeting, but they are having their organizational meetings, so.
Well, I had that on the agenda for city council tonight.
Yeah, so it's really a council matter, that's why I'm bringing it up now.
Same with Development Commission.
Well, and also the Board of Works needs to appoint someone to the Plan Commission too.
Right, so,
So those need to, if you guys want to do that tonight. I mean, I just had it ready for next meeting, but if you
yeah,
want to do it tonight.
that's what I'm saying,
Okay.
next meeting, do it at next meeting if you guys are comfortable with that. Otherwise, you can do it in your first meeting in January, it's just that those individuals
meeting
technically,
before.
yeah, they're not going to be participants in the reorganization, so. I just wanted to bring that up to you so that if you wanted to go ahead and do it
I guess
on the
what
15th,
other-
you could.
What other boards will there be to put, there'll be 2 new council people too. Where will they go in terms of boards?
Bill's not gonna be on the solid waste, somebody will have to do that.
So I'll have to
Okay.
fill that
All right.
position.
You're currently what, Bill? Solid Waste Board?
Yeah, economic development.
You're on solid waste also?
Yeah, he filled out
You took
Charlie's.
Charlie's place on that, okay. So we need someone on solid waste.
Okay. The other thing that I just wanted to report, and we can do it again at the council meeting, but we closed the sale of Old City Hall. So that's now been completed.
Did you get a check, Phil?
Yes, she did.
Okay. He wouldn't give it to me, he had to give it to Phil.
Thank you, Tim.
There's a reason for that, John.
And that money goes to...
Yeah, you're not wanted at all, John.
I'm trying to keep you out of jail.
That could have been your last hurrah, John.
Tim tried.
So Cam, what all boards are you on? As at large? You're not on...
Finance.
I was on plan, but then we did the reorganization.
I was on plan as well, and when we reorganized, we went on.
Cam currently is just on finance, currently. Tyler, you're currently on
Plan.
and finance. Bill doesn't count. Well, yeah, it does.
Yeah, it
They got
does,
to replace
because you
him.
gotta replace
Bill, you're on
Solid
economic
waste.
development and solid waste.
And I'm currently on the, does the community corrections
I was
count?
gonna say, yeah, that's
Community
why I was just
Corrections
gonna bring
Board.
it up, yeah.
And finance committee.
Okay.
So were you gonna do tonight, or
You don't like
Well, I was gonna do the,
discuss it and then all the...
it doesn't matter.
Certificates
I
ready
got
for
it down
next-
for tonight, but we can do it next week. or
I'll have
next
the
meeting.
certificates ready for the
All
next
right,
meeting.
we'll just do it
if they
next
wanna-
meeting.
If they wanna agree to, well, it's the Board of Works
15.
appoint, if they wanna fill Bill Carbach again for another 4-year
Bill will
term.
go on the plan commission, he said.
Okay.
And I would like that.
Okay,
And
then I'll
on,
change.
can we just talk about this as far as the economic development camp and solid waste? Matt?
Well,
Well, you got two other ones here too.
That's true. Forgot about that.
I don't know when solid waste meets.
Solid waste meets, it's Monday,
They moved it to
8:00.
Tuesday, they moved it to Tuesdays at 8.
8 o'clock in the morning. They usually last an hour, at the most.
Okay.
We don't have to make a decision on this. I guess I'd like to see
Was
when
the
those
plan
things
commission?
meet.
Well, the city council has to make a decision on who's gonna sit in on, well, but also
Plan.
on the, solid waste district, because you have an appointment to that position, to that board.
Oh, I understand, but this,
Right, it doesn't have to be done, right.
Economic Development meets on Friday, the second Friday of every month at 7:30.
AM.
Yeah, the solid waste district isn't gonna meet before you meet in
When did-
January, so you
Is that the one that
can do it
meets
in
on
January.
the second Friday, the solid waste, or was that the economic
Economic
development?
Development.
When solid waste meet?
It's now the third Tuesday of the month,
Yeah.
and it's not every month, they
They
have a
skip
schedule.
them monthly.
So I'll get
They'll skip a couple.
What time of day? Morning?
8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
You want me to make a motion to adjourn?
Would you?
Yeah, it will.
I'll second.
We're adjourned.
We ran over 5
Okay,
minutes.
so we're not...
How's that, Chalupi?
We're 5 minutes to the council meeting.
Okay, but we're comfortable with Bill taking that full
Bill,
discussion.
good job.
And I'll have it ready for the next.
Okay. So we're over.
Yeah.
Call meeting to order, have a roll call, please.
Cam Collier. Here. Bill Crown. Here. Matt Dyer.
Here.
Tyler Fulenkamp. Here. Ken Meyer.
Here.
I'd like to invite everyone to stand and recite the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We all emailed the minutes of the November 17th meeting. Do we have any changes or additions to those minutes?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as emailed?
The motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. First item of business this evening is insurance proposals for the property and casualty insurance for the city of Decatur. And we'll have Tim open these. We have two quotes.
Or do we need to vote on that? So we have
Tim?
Wow, that's what actually.
You're all right.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
We have two quotes, one from Graver Insurance.
I can do that.
Okay, the first quote is submitted by Graver Insurance